Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
And here we are. So we had this lovely, one of my absolute favorite passages yesterday about teaching, and based on such an interesting passage on the fact that the Torah appears to be giving a genealogy of Moses and Aaron and only gives Aaron's genealogy and doesn't say anything about about Moses and the reason why Moses is included in this genealogy. So if you're interested and you missed yesterday's lesson, check it out. At any rate, so now we are talking about the Levites, because when the Israelites were counted, and essentially for the purposes of knowing the size of the troops that were going to go in and have to conquer the land of Canaan, the Levites were not included. And so here we're now about to start counting the Levites. It's going to be a different kind of census. The age level is different, etc. And we're told here about why the Levites aren't included. And we're going to go into that a little bit here. So here are the duties of the Levites. They're going to actually encamp right around the tent of meeting. There are three Levitical families, Gershon, Kahat, and Merari. You'll see that they were each given specific tasks in terms of carrying the parts of the tabernacle, and they also live right alongside the tabernacle. Moses and Aaron and their families lived on the eastern side, and the other three families are on the other three cardinal points. So let's keep going. V'shamru et kol klei ohel moed. They shall guard, they shall be responsible for all the vessels of the tent of meeting, ve'et mishmeret b'nei Yisrael, and the watch, the responsibilities of the children of Israel, la'avod, to serve, et avodat hamishkan, the service of the temple, of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. Rashi. Et mishmeret b'nei Yisrael. So what do we mean, the service of the children of Israel? What service do they have? Shekulan hayu zakukin letzorchei hamikdash. Because in truth, all of the Israelites were responsible for the needs of the tabernacle. Ella, however, shahaleviim ba'im tachtehem. However, the Levites come in their place. They basically, instead of the entire Israelites, it is only the Levites who actually are going to do this, even though all of the Israelites are still responsible. B'shlichutam. In other words, they are the messengers, they are the designated, appointed agents of the Israelites, of the other Israelite tribes. Lefichach, okay, and for this reason, because essentially they are hired, you might say, quote, quote, to do this particular work. The Levites, that actually is the responsibility of the entire Jewish people, the entire members of Israel. Lefichach lochim mehem, and for this reason, in other words, they're being paid, right? They take from them, from the Israelites, ha ma'asrot, the tithes, bischaran, for their hire. This is wonderful. I mean, this is so insightful in terms of understanding the dynamics of what's going on here. So the Levites, it isn't just a privileged position, it's also a responsibility. And as a result, they are paid for their service. They are given, the rest of the Israelites are supposed to give a tithe, the first tithe actually, which goes to the Levites. Shene'emar, as it states, and this isn't just a lovely sounding theory. Again, there's some rigor here, and we want to support that statement. So I'm going to assume this is actually Numbers. It's referring back to Sham means Ibid, right? The same place. And we have to go back to the last time there was a citation. And I believe this is the citation, which is Numbers. Now, there's another citation here, which is Megillah, but that's a rabbinic citation. That's from the Talmud. And when it says Shene'emar, that's a technical, even though it means simply as it states, there's a technical side to that phrase, which means it's a biblical quote. Okay, we don't find Shene'emar preceding a rabbinic text. It only precedes a biblical quote. So in other words, if we were to go to Numbers chapter 18, this is where we should find it. Now, interestingly enough, and this in a sense proves it, right, is because this quote is also from chapter 18 in the book of Numbers. So he could have just said Sham, Ibid, but he gives you the chapter number as well. And here's what it says there, Ki schar hi lachem. So referring to the tithe, it says schar, meaning wages, right? It is a wage for them. The tithes are a wage to lachem means to you, speaking to the Levites, chalaf avodatchem. For the sake of, or in the place of, your service, for the sake of your service. So that's what this is. This is what is meant when it says Mishmeret B'nai Yisrael. Next verse. V'natata. Oh, Golda. What? Yes.
Hold on. Okay. So that's Pidyon Haben, correct? This is why we get Pidyon Haben later on.
Pidyon Haben is yes, in a sense. It is.
Yes, I mean, yes, in a sense.
It is the same dynamic. Let's go to the next verse as well. You can see we're going to finish off a paragraph here, and then we can talk about that. Don't let me forget. All right.
Okay.
Because this is actually, I think it's in this particular section of Numbers. We are in Numbers now. That they talk about this, but Rashi's going to mention the specific reason as to why this is actually Plan B.
I sort of see it.
We'll clarify that. We'll clarify that, right? So we have examples of Plan B in the Torah. So Plan A was that the Israelites were going to leave Egypt, receive the 10 Commandments, construct the tabernacle, although even the tabernacle we could say is Plan B. Plan A would have been the Israelites were going to leave Egypt, they were going to accept the Torah, and then they were going to head off into the land of Canaan and build the temple in Jerusalem. That's Plan A. Plan B, Mishkan, because as if it were, God couldn't wait until the temple was built to be able to reside amongst the Jewish people. God wanted to reside so badly amongst the Jewish people and consequently in the world that he decided that we needed to build the Mishkan, this portable sanctuary. And of course, what happened was we had the incident of the 12 spies, which is coming up, all right, where instead of marching straight into the land of Canaan, which is what we're planning to do here. That's why we're doing what we're doing. They lost heart, and so they had to wander. The whole generation had to die off. That's Plan B, 40 years wandering in the desert, another Plan B. And the Levites themselves, again, circumstances alter cases. It's such an important principle that we have to take if we're going to apply the rule of law and the rule of the Torah. We have to take into account circumstances. So anyway, onwards. V'natata et haleviyim, you shall give the Levites, la'aharon u'la'avnav, to Aaron and his sons. Nitunim hema lo. Indeed, they are given to him, ma'et b'nei Israel, from the children of Israel, from the midst of the children of Israel. In other words, originally, Something else was going to be given to Aaron and his sons to help them minister as priests. But now it's the Levites. Let's take a look here. Tet. Nitunim Hemalo. They are given to him, le'ezra, to assist him. That's what we mean. They're not slaves. They are there to assist him. Me'et b'nei Yisrael, from the children of Israel. And it says, kamo mitoch. In other words, he's taking this word me'et and saying we could actually substitute for it the word mitoch b'nei Israel, from among the children of Israel. So me'et b'nei Israel isn't quite as clear an expression as mitoch b'nei Israel, from among the children of Israel. Klomar, what are we trying to say? Misha'ar kol ha'edah nivdalu. He says, from the rest of the community, they were divided off. The Levites were divided off. Lachach b'gizrat hamakom. Nivdalu lachach. I'm sorry, I'm not dividing up the sentence. From the rest of the community, they were separated off for this. B'gzeirat hamakom, as an edict, a divine edict. Vehu nitnam lo, and he gave them to him. He, God, gave them, the Levites, to Aaron. Shene'emar, as it says, chapter 8, again, Numbers. Ve'etna et haleviim, and I shall give the Levites nitunim, as given, etc. We'll keep going here. Ve'et Aharon ve'et panav tivkod, and Aaron and his sons you shall appoint. V'shamru et kahunatam, and they should guard their ministry. They should keep watch over their ministry. They have to be careful about it. V'hazar hakarev yumat, and anyone who is a stranger, i.e., a non-descendant of Aaron, who draws near, yumat, shall die. Take a look here. Rashi. The et Aharon ve'et banav tivkod. And he says, we've had this pekod to actually mean to take a census, right? But Rashi says here, lashon pekidut, here it has the connotation of appointment. Ve'eno lashon binyan. It doesn't mean counting. It doesn't mean take a census here. Ve'shamru et ketunatam. They shall guard their ministry, right? Their kohanate. Kabbalat damim. So what are we referring to? Rashi is telling you the specific elements of priestly service. Kabbalat damim means the acceptance of the blood. In other words, when the animal was brought to offer up as a sacrifice and it was slaughtered, up to the point of shechita, the actual slaughtering of the animal could be done by an Israelite. But at that particular point, the blood was then put into a vessel. That could only be done by Kohanim. So continuing, some other specific acts that are done by Kohanim. The zrika, and the sprinkling, right, the dashing of the blood. The haktara, and the burning, right, the burning up, the offering up, the placing on the fire. The avodot hamesurot lakohanim, and other acts of service that were designated for the kohanim. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going here. So we come to a new section. It's not a new section, it's just a new paragraph. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. So again, Hashem spoke to Moses to say, Va'ani, here we go. Va'ani, as for me, hine, behold, lakachti, or indeed, right? It's an emphatic word. Behold, I have, or indeed, lakachti, I have taken et Leviim, the Levites, mitoch b'nei Yisrael, from the midst of the children of Israel. Here we go, Golda, tachat kol bechor, in the place of every firstborn, peter rechem, who opens the womb, mibnei Yisrael, from amongst the children of Israel, v'hayu li haleviim, and the Levites shall be for me. This is God speaking now, that they have a special role. And what's going on here? So let's take a look. Rashi. Va'ani hine lakachti. And as for me, behold, or indeed, I have singled out, I've taken. Va'ani mehechan zachitihim. So, and on what basis? As for me, from where was I entitled for the Levites? Where did this happen? How did this happen? Mitoch b'nei Israel, from the midst of the children of Israel, sheyu Yisrael sochrin otam, that the Israelites should hire them, that is the Levites, l'sherut sheli, for my service, to serve me. Al yedei habachorot. So here's the original story. By al yedei habachorot, by means of the firstborn, zachiti bahem, I was entitled to the firstborn of the Israelites. So the story is, it goes back to the fact that when the Israelites, in order to free the Israelites from Egyptian servitude, ultimately, remember, God slew the firstborn of the Egyptians. When God slew the firstborn of the Egyptians, that put, in a sense, an imbalance in nature. And so consequently now, the firstborn of the Israelites owed their lives to God, because God spared them and, in fact, redeemed the Jewish people through that. So originally, the firstborn would have had the job, the task of doing what the Levites ultimately wound up doing. So from every Israelite family, the firstborn and when they say firstborn opening up the womb, means that if it may be the firstborn male, but nevertheless, if there is a female, a woman who's born, a daughter that's born prior to this woman, prior to the male, it would not count. It is limited to the very firstborn male. Ulakachtim tmuratam, and I have taken them, tmuratam, in their place. In other words, I've taken the Levites in the place of the firstborn males. Lefi shahaita ha'avodah pivchorot, Rashi's explaining, because originally the service was supposed to be done by the firstborn, by the bechorot. But when they sinned through the golden calf, when they worshiped the golden calf, nifsalu, they no longer were able to count. They lost that privilege and that responsibility. They became pasul. And I'm blocking right now on the actual translation. Invalid. They became invalid. That's the word. So I'm going to actually put that in here. You'll give me a second to do that so that I don't forget. Whereas the Levites, shelo avdu avodat elelim, the Levites who refused, they did not serve the idols, nivcharu tachtehem, they were chosen in their place. So that's where we get the pidyon haben idea as well, Golda. And if you want to add anything, but here we now understand the golden calf is such a serious offense, and it is such a serious act of idolatry. And of course, as you've heard me say already, it's essentially worship of money. It's believing that money has the ability to save a person. And what's scary, of course, is the fact that it's not a question that we seek poverty. We don't. We recognize the importance of having means. The issue is worshiping it. It's a subtle, sadly, a subtle, maybe not so subtle distinction. So that's where we're going to stop today, and we'll continue.
Well, Rabbi, we only have one more verse, and there's no Rashi on it for this Revi'i.
Okay, I'll finish it up. Thank you. See, we need you, Lauren. Thank you. Kili chol bechor, and here it says, "For to me is every firstborn, beyom hakoti, on the day that I smote kol bechor be'eretz Mitzrayim, every firstborn in the land of Egypt. Hikdashti li, I sanctified to me, kol bechor be'Yisrael, every firstborn amongst the Israelites, me adam ad behema, from human to cattle, li eu, they shall be to me, ani Hashem, I am Hashem." So, again, we have the Bechor, firstborn of cattle, also are supposed to be offered up to God, and we have a mitzvah that when it comes to a non-kosher cattle, such as donkeys, there is an amount of money that is given in its place to to the Kohanim. So, we'll stop the share here.
So as you were saying before, it's a money transfer. The Pidyon Haben is a money transfer. So you are buying your child out of service.
Three shekels, correct. You are redeeming. Pidyon means to redeem, right? So your firstborn, firstborn Levite doesn't have to be redeemed.
No.
Right. But the firstborn Israelite, even though the Levites have come to take their place, and we'll see that there actually is a counting of the firstborn amongst the Israelites and the firstborn amongst and the Levites, not the firstborn Levites, but the Levites. And there's a match, and it turns out that there are more firstborn Israelites than there are Levites.
Well, that makes sense.
And so that's where you get the 5 shekels.
So that to make up the difference. Okay.
Make up the difference. And of course, which Israelite gets picked to have to donate the 5 shekels? I'm going to not explain that. It's a cute little way in which they solve that problem. So, here.
2 questions.